Welcome back to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus this morning has been on the violence that has taken place in the city of Milwaukee. A first quarter report from the Milwaukee Homicide Review Commission found homicides are up 182% and shootings are up 31% since last year. My next guest works with an organization that's goal is to empower people to act together for justice in pursuit of their individual and collective interests. Reverend Willie Brisco, who's president of the Milwaukee Inner City Congregations Allied for Hope, also known as Micah. Good morning, Reverend Brisco.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And needless to say, you do a lot of hard work in the community through Micah, and I'm interested in hearing more about it and what it is you do.
Yes, Micah is, as you said, Milwaukee Inner City Congregations Allied for Hope. It was formed in 1988 as an organization of inner city pastors, Baptist, Lutheran, Methodist, who had seen the inequity in lending when it came to the inner city of Milwaukee. They wanted to do something about it. And so they approached the banks, and they ultimately got $500 million in loans for the inner city at that time for the disparity in housing. So they saw that there really was a need for social justice, so they went even farther, went into the schools, started working for school nurses, the more ordinance to getting minority contractors better aligned with city contracts, and it just grew from there to the point now where we're actually doing everything from prison, education, immigration, and AODA treatment, jobs and economics.
Wow, and there is definitely strength in numbers. So how important is it to have that diversified, united front when dealing with all of the issues that you just mentioned?
From a spiritual standpoint, God created us all as one entity in his own image. We some kind of way lost that through racial injustice and through our separations, but everyone in this society is tied together by that thread of connectivity that Dr. King talked about. If there is a cancer in one part of the body, it ultimately will travel through the other part if it's untreated. So we need as many voices and as many diverse opinions on this issue as possible because it affects us all.
Yeah, and we know just this summer has been just devastating when we look at all the different things that have been taking place, and it didn't just get started. We've seen this pattern over a course of the years that have gone by, and it seems to be getting worse. So violence being one of the things that I know are one of the main things on your agenda. What are other issues that are important to the organization at this time?
The other issues that we are really working on right now is racism, institutional and structural, that we all have to come to grips with. We're working now in 53206, the UW study from Dr. Lois Quinn that showed that the 53206 zip code is the most heavily incarcerated zip code on the planet.
She's been on the show to talk about that, and her study was remarkable.
It was eye-opening. When you looked at the map and you looked at the concentration, it even surprised us, and we've been working in those areas for years. So we came up with an initiative to try to get a grant and get financing to do 53206 organizing, get some young people in the churches, in the schools in that area to try to organize people in that community to look at what was happening and become part of the change.
Yeah, and talking about the zip code 53206, we know that it's one of the zip codes in the city that deals with a disproportionate number of many things. And we were talking before the show, and you said that it actually is identified as a zip code that stands alone in the country.
In the country.
How so?
Well, it's hard to see how poverty and how disinterest got so concentrated in that area, but it has to do with the heavy unemployment. The hard schools that are in that area are not really funded the way they should be, and the resources that are allowed in that area is almost like a food desert. There, people in that area don't have access to some of the things that we take for granted that we can walk to. And you look at 53206, the businesses have moved out. You have the more vacant homes, boarded up homes. That's an environmental eyesore. People forget that we sometimes identify with what we see and what we walk through every day. versus walking through a park with greenery. You walk through the streets with the houses that are boarded up, and you walk past closed and vacant lots. Those things have a really, really adverse effect on you.
And I believe that when you talk about people acting the way they feel. So if you have on maybe a jogging suit and you're kind of just kicking around, you don't act the same way you do when you've got on your good Sunday wear. So it's the same thing with an environment. When things are together and feel good, then that's the way you react.
And if you keep getting a dose of that you're less than what someone else is, you have less resources, you are not accounted, that becomes internalized. And so, and if I don't care about myself, I'm sure not going to care about you. And that gets perpetuated in crime and how things happen in our community.
Yeah, very interesting psychological perspective there. A little bit of your background. Now, you're originally from Mississippi,
yes,
so
I am.
A good old Southern man.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
But you graduated from Milwaukee's North Division High School, attended University of Wisconsin-Madison, as well as MATC.
Yes.
And so, along with your background in the ministry, you also have a background with corrections.
Corrections.
So a lot of the things that you're seeing, you are understanding that mindset and where some of these young people and adults are destitute and feel like they have no other means but to rob and kill. So let's talk about that. We've got this serious, I call it an access to guns issue.
Yes.
It's apparent when we see kids as young as 13 and 14 years old shooting each other. Then you see drive-bys where babies are being innocent babies being killed, just sitting in their own homes. Hard to digest that. The carjackings, the armed robberies, all of these things, it's happening every single day. What are your thoughts?
I tell everybody, God gave me a great spiritual journey from Mississippi to Detroit to Milwaukee to corrections to where.
So you've seen a lot of things. You've lived in Detroit too.
So I spent a year in Detroit during the mid-'60s, Motown, General Motors. It was the first time that I saw blacks and white living in the same community. I saw affluent black people driving brand new cars. I came from Mississippi, Jim Crow. This blew my mind.
And now look at Detroit, where it is now. So that's got to be pretty mind-blowing for you.
I was over there a month ago, and it is unbelievable. It looks like a war-torn city, like a bombed-out nation. But what I got from the Jim Crow South, from seeing middle-class Detroit, I came to Milwaukee, saw some of the same things. A.O. Smith, the breweries, the foundries were going. When all of those things left, nothing replaced them. There was no civic engagement to say we need to do something to fill that gap of jobs and loss of income. What happens? Neighborhoods deteriorated, families deteriorated, drugs came in, gangs came in. When you and I came up, and I know I'm a little bit more seasoned than you, but we all had church and school was structured. Church was even more mandatory than school almost. And when you went to school, you had to behave there as if you were at home.
And we started the day with prayer.
Right.
That's been taken out of schools.
Right. And if you got a bad report from your teacher, your parents didn't go to school and challenge the teacher. You got challenged because the teacher was a second arm of that community that we had, and the pastors. All of that has been lost in these children that we have now. They don't have that hope for a future. They don't have that spiritual guidance that came up. And somehow we've got to get into these families and to these young parents and let them know that you have to instill in your children that their life should not end at 16 years old.
Right.
They should just be beginning to start dreaming of what their future is. And life is something that's gifted. You just can't take it as easily as you can by pulling a trigger, because that bullet can travel miles. Yeah. When you shoot at one person, you're putting the whole community in danger. That doesn't happen in the mindset of someone who doesn't have spirituality, who doesn't have the ability to feel how precious life is, who haven't experienced that. And we have a group of kids out there on the street right now who thinks proving how hard they are is what's going to get them through life. But what it does is end their lives early.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a sad state. And the thing is, as you were saying, somehow we have to get into the families, but you find that sometimes it's generationally, you know.
Yes.
You do have hardworking parents who have taught their kids right from wrong, and the kids just take that wrong path. But you also have parents who are into all types of things, don't care where their kids are, don't care to know, and are not trying to find out. So those kids are kind of out there feeling like nobody cares about them, therefore they don't care about anybody else, and this is an ugly cycle, and I really don't know. We continue to talk about what needs to be done, but you know, we're at the point where something has to be done.
Something has to be done. We're at a perfect storm now where all of these things have come to an intersection and have clashed together. We have some parents that engage in the same activity that the children are engaged in. This is a breakdown of the family structure. It's hard to pinpoint who's to blame and where the solutions are, because they're numerous. If I had the solutions, I would not be here with you today. I'd be out there implementing them and changing this whole city.
And we'd give you a Purple Heart for it.
but I listen at the mayor and the police chief. They come on TV and they ask for more police coverage, more overtime, and they kind of put out, this is not a political or a police solution. Police are first responders. I don't envy them the task they have.
Absolutely.
But if they are able to predict where anger is going to break out, then they're psychics. They're not police officers. If you can actually put enough police officers out there to deter crime, then I'm for it. But most criminals operate out of the purview of the police. Most incidents that we're finding now with homicides anger that just sparks and blow up and get out of control, and the individuals have access to guns. That is probably the most common denominator that this country has to deal with, is our access and love affair with weapons of mass destruction, which are firearms, not nuclear weapons. More people are killed every year with firearms than in wars in this country. So we have to change that concept. Because how does a 13-year-old acquire a gun?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm scared to death if you even show me one. I can't imagine a kid being comfortable enough to pick it up and pull the trigger, but that's what we're looking at in this day and age. Before we run out of time, August 16th through the 23rd is going to be Peace Week in Milwaukee, and that's something that we're going to really need to put some emphasis on. But you, Micah, has actually teamed up with the Sikh Temple and other organizations to really drive home that voice of peace during this particular week, but you actually work on this every day of your life. So talk about the relationship with the Sikh Temple and how this came about.
Well, the Sikh Temple, actually, after that tragedy that happened in 2012, we reached out to them, and ever since then, we've had this dynamic relationship. It was eye-opening to realize that they were there all this time and we didn't really know it. The crime that was perpetrated against them was done because people thought they were Muslim. And this is a Sikh Indian religion that's one of the most peaceful religion that celebrates the one and true God. And I have been blessed to be able to I've been out there like 6 or 7 times. I've spoken their assemblies. We are in partnership with them to show that this takes a lot of diverse group of people from all over, proving what America, all of our documents and all of our declarations stand for. And this Peace Week is something that has been put together, and we hope to do it from this period forward every year, is to show different groups doing different things during this week, prayer, demonstrations, but showing the whole state of Wisconsin how diverse we are and how we're all tied together in this.
That's what it's all about. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
And keep doing what you're doing.
Well, we'll try.
All right. Reverend Willie Brisco is the president of the Milwaukee Inner City Congregations Allied for Hope, also known as Micah. And for more information, you can go to micahempowers.org. That is going to do it for today's show. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. As always, I thank you for watching, and I hope you join us again next week as we take another look at our issues in Milwaukee. Have a great day.